And I will invite Trix to come in, looking lovely in your red jacket. Very nice.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, and how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm very well, thank you.
Well, we're going to take a look to start off with African news that is focusing on Democratic Republic of Congo, where a number of people have died following an attack. So let's scroll down and see that story, the headline for that story. And of course, there has been, it says in Eastern DRC, 7 people have been killed, including UN peacekeeper after a clash. So we know that this country has not been having a nice time in terms of the political scene. And of course, there were fears that if Kabila does not step aside, this type of thing is going to be happening.
I believe the term did expire,
yes,
right?
Yes,
and
it did
the point
expire.
He was supposed to step down.
Exactly.
But they've delayed elections yet again.
They have, because the tale has been that the country is not ready financially for an election. But of course, people have speculated that Kabila is just trying to elongate his time in power and make sure no one takes over him as soon as it is expected.
Right.
His father actually served for years and years on end. And so when he took over, it was expected that he would serve for the 2 terms that he won the election, and then hand over after and conduct an election where he's expected to hand over. I think his popularity is going down, and there's the suspicion that he does not want to conduct an election where he will lose and then be forced out of power. I know in Africa this has been an age-old tale whereby people stay in power, families actually stay in power for years and years, decades even, and then it becomes a bit tricky when they have to step away. But remember the article about their wealth. Clearly they're doing well for themselves, so maybe they should consider stepping away from power. Who knows?
It's always an issue. I think once you get into power, it's no longer about how much you have in your pocket. It's how much power you can wield. But there's also the notion that sometimes some of the African leaders are doing that to protect the wealth they have.
Exactly, yeah. So, of course, when you have the power, you're able to move things in whatever direction you want them to be. Let's move on to the Quartz Africa newspaper. But down here, we're having some other story. I think this is from Somalia, where African Union forces in Somalia are said to have killed 11 civilians, residents. So probably trying to keep the peace, and when sometimes things go wrong and then we find civilians being caught in the middle of the crossfire. Of course, we have a very dramatic picture there where there's an armed human being there. I don't know what faction he belongs to, and someone blindfolded in the back of the truck.
Very
really
scary.
Dramatic, really scary. If this, of course, is a real picture taken while it was happening, probably not really good for that individual.
Yeah.
Then let's move on to the next website, that is Quartz Africa. So they're speculating about Robert Mugabe. So they're saying Robert Mugabe looks poised to set to rule Zimbabwe.
Talking about African leaders.
Until
Good
he
Lord.
is 99 years. This is the same story we've been talking about the DRC. When families want to stick to power for as long as they can, when leaders are seemingly unable to actually rule because of their old age, but they're not letting go.
And I believe Zimbabwe would be going to the elections, or is it 2018?
Yes.
I think it's in 2018, and he is possibly going to be part of
that election, front runner.
Yeah, there was notion that his wife was also going to take over, but we don't know how that is going.
In fact, there was an article, I think it was by the same paper, that was saying that she says she's as good as president because she feels that even if Mugabe steps aside, or if he, God forbid, passes away, she would rise to power and become the next president of Zimbabwe. And who knows whether this would actually change things, because as at now, people want change, especially when it comes to the economy. Robert Mugabe has tried to change and revamp the economy, but by rolling out a new currency. But it has people are skeptical because he has done this over and over again. The currency loses value. They resort to using dollars, but still it's not really working for Zimbabwe. So when this new currency was rolled out, it was seen as a last-ditch effort by Robert Mugabe to just bring things, to make a change that is for the better, that will give him goodwill among the people and make things work in his country. But a lot of speculation on whether this is plausible or whether this would actually
work. And one
work.
wonders, after ruling for so many years, honestly, what is it that he can bring on board that is new or good for that country?
Zimbabwe was once the breadbasket of Africa, as it was called. So you can imagine, not really the pearl of Africa in terms of all the mines and the good things that come out of the ground, and the agricultural potential that it had. But it just steadily went down the line throughout his rule. So perhaps it would be time to have a fresh leader, not a 99-year-old man at the helm of that country. Then we have the Al Jazeera website that is condemning the killing of the ambassador of Turkey in Ankara. So you can see the picture of that assailant right there.
This is actually very, very scary. I watched the video. There's actually a video going round of the actual shooting as he was just giving the speech. He's shot in the chest, or maybe from the back. I'm not sure, because if this was the guy who shot him, he came from the back.
And he's seemingly, this is him. I'm not sure if he's the one
I think so.
Sprawled on the floor. Very sad, very agitated-looking assailant right there, who's probably shouting something or declaring something. We know how these things usually go. The people who conduct such attacks have something to say before they're taken out. So clearly, this is really
very
sad.
disturbing,
So Russia has
and also may
it,
throw war back into between Russia and
probably,
Turkey.
and the relations between Turkey and Russia have become very cozy lately after Turkey there was an attempted coup in Turkey, and the US and other Western nations did not really side with that Erdogan, the president of Turkey. They were not really helping him in sorting it out. So he turned to Turkey, and they were very cordial, and they have actually, Turkey has been in talks with Russia about Syria. So they have been having some really cozy and cordial relationship lately. So when this type of thing happens, probably might throw a spanner in the works in terms of diplomatic relations. Then you're having another story there from Berlin. I think that's our top story,
Another very sad story.
Yeah, a lorry has plowed into Christmas market in Berlin and 12 have been killed. This is probably a copycat crime, because remember in Nice in France, when this was horrible, they were celebrating Bastille Day, and it went through the whole crowd of people celebrating and killed I think almost 100 people. But this looks very, very akin to that that terror attack. So they are calling it a presumed terror attack. It has not been determined or confirmed whether. But the thing that the witnesses are saying is that the assailant was doing it. It was deliberate. They were not thinking. It wasn't
it's
an
not a
accident,
car that lost control or anything like that.
It was a deliberate attack.
And I don't know if they've managed to establish his mental state, because that could be the other thing. Is it somebody maybe who lost it?
A lot of the times when they go and take a look at these people, they have a history of psychological problems or just having problems with the law. Like the person in Nice had a record of having problems, run-ins with the law and the authorities in that part of France. So probably investigations will be going on, and a lot of these sites will be giving us more information as it unfolds, as the investigations bear fruit. Then there's a story on Yemen, Arab coalition to stop using UK cluster bombs. So still there is, while a lot of attention has been on Aleppo and Syria and Mosul, you know that the situation in Yemen is not really good. So of course they're going to be putting an end to the use of those kinds of bombs. You know, at the end of the day, it's the civilians who are caught in between the crossfires. So yeah, hopefully this will ease the situation on the ground. And then the battle for Mosul. I was wondering yesterday where the story disappeared to, because Peshmerga forces were actually trying to get this out of the hands of ISIL. So I miss everything there. This is probably a quote from someone who was in Mosul and ran off, because civilians were actually evacuating that city, just trying to save themselves from the fighting. And hopefully they have made gains. Still, it's ongoing. It has been happening, I think now 2 months. They're still fighting for that area, or that city rather. Let's move on to the East African and take a look at what they're focusing on, which is South Sudan.
Closer to home.
Yeah, closer to home. UN peacekeepers implicated in South Sudan atrocities. So the same.
That would be very serious if the people meant to keep peace are actually now taking sides.
Yes. So a report by UN is tracking the arms and where they came from and how they ended up in the hands of the militias. So clearly, throughout the investigations, they found that these arms might have started off with the UN peacekeepers and wound up in the arms of the military militants who actually wound up using them against civilians and we know thousands of people have died in South Sudan. So the officials operating in South Sudan's Bantu town offered dozens of weapons and ammunition to rebel General James Cowan. So really it was a direct handing over of weapons to those people. And then we are having The Guardian. Let's take a look. And I think The Guardian is giving us a play-by-play of what's happening in Berlin. So if you take a look at the bottom, every time you see the red line on The Guardian, it's a live report. So Berlin truck terrorist attack, 12 killed in Christmas market crash, and this is a live report. The full report: suspect held and 12 dead after truck crashes into the market. So the German police have confirmed that they have arrested the suspect. The difference between this is the difference between this attack and the one in Nice, whereby the suspect was actually killed just to stop him from his rampage. So this is probably a good thing because, probably justice will be dished out in terms of getting him to be accountable for his
and also to find out whether he's doing this on his own or he's doing that, from a terrorist perspective as a member of a certain group.
So it will be good in terms of the investigations and just bringing closure to the whole matter. That's
all right, so that's what we have on the international dailies. But just to give you more news, hostility mounts towards Chinese businesses in Madagascar amid protests against reopening of the Chinese-operated gold mine.